Richard Rodgers wrote many of what are considered to be the best melodies of all time. And it wasn't random. He had a lot of patterns in his work that helped him create such memorable melodies over and over again. And so that is what we are going to look at today here on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! If you don't know me, hi, my name is Mateo Chavez-Lewis. I'm a professional music director and musical theater composer, splitting my time right now between here in Toronto and New York City. And today on the channel, we're looking at Some Enchanted Evening. Oh, wait a second. There we go. Some Enchanted Evening. And we post videos like this all the time on this channel, so if this feels you like your vibe, maybe you should subscribe. So this melody is so famous, and it's because of its simple beauty. It starts, some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger, you may see a stranger across a crowded room. That's how we start. And this is a very simple melody so far. We've got the same phrase starting almost all of those lines. It's like a 4-line melody, what I sang. The beginning of 3 of those phrases is exactly the same. Those 5 notes are the exact same. Some enchanted eve. The first phrase goes down. Ning. Then the second one, same thing. You may see a strange. Same 5 notes. And then it just goes up. Jer. And that B, we're in C major. So that B is called the leading tone, because it's a semitone below the home note of the key, which is C in C major, obviously. And that B wants to reach up to C major. So when we get that, you may see a stranger, it feels incomplete. Then we get, you may see a stranger, and it goes up to the C, and that feels a little bit more complete. So there's this reach, there's this tension, and then there's this release. He gives us the sound that our ears are longing to hear. And you'll notice literally only one note is different in those 3 phrases, and that, I think, helps the melody stick in the ear. You know, there's a lot of people who will tell you things about present-day pop music and say present-day pop music is so repetitive, and, you know, back in the day with the real composers like Richard Rodgers, there wasn't so much repetition. I actually push back on that hard, because I think repetition is a really important part of music. It's a really important part of how listeners understand the music that they're listening to, and this is a perfect example. Repetition. Then we have more repetition here in the second half of the phrase. And somehow you know even then, that somewhere you'll see her again and again. This time, the first 2 phrases of this of these 4 lines are the same, or start the same. Ba-da-da-da. Those 4 notes repeat over here. You know even, and then it's just the last note that's different again. Then. It's a really great way to make things repetitive without making them boring if you just switch up that last note of the line in the melody. And again, similar to how the B wants to reach up to C, the D wants to settle down to C. Right? So we get, and somehow you know, that doesn't feel complete, and then you know even then, that feels complete. And so again, tension and release, question and answer. That is how great melodies are written, period. The other thing is, here we've got a change, right, in the melody. Instead of going ba-da-da-da, now we get, that somewhere you'll see her again and again. But the rhythm is the same, so it still feels connected, right? There's no randomness. It still all feels part of the pattern. Here we have the same rhythm, ba-ba-da-ba-ba, and then hear the same notes in the same rhythm, ba-ba-da-ba-ba, and then even though we're changing the notes, we still have that ba-ba-ba rhythm. That somewhere you'll see her again and again. So Here we're literally repeating the same thing 3 times with one note different. Here we're repeating the same thing 2 times with one note different. And then even when we diverge from it, we're keeping the same rhythm so that it still feels connected and part of the same pattern. That's how great melodies are written. It's all about patterns. Then we go back to the Some Enchanted Evening, exactly the same as before. So this song follows a very well-known song form called AABA. And I talk about this a lot on the channel, but I think it's like one of the most important times to talk about it is with this song. So AABA song form, if you don't know, basically when we're talking about song form, we assign parts of the song that are the same. We assign them the same letter. So an A melody is whatever the first melody you hear is. And then if that same melody repeats or is very slightly varied, then we call that the second A section. So it's the same letter because it's the same melody. Then the B section, it's a different letter, which means it's going to be very different. So the melody is going to be different. Usually the B section provides a lot of musical contrast, not just in a different melody, but also in different dynamics, different rhythms. And we'll see that happening with Some Enchanted Evening. And then oftentimes, after we have 2 A sections and a B section to provide contrast, we'll come back to the final A section with a little bit more clarity, a little bit more movement, a little bit more emotion, and then sometimes a little outro. And that is a classic song form that the Gershwin brothers used all the time, and, you know, the jazz era composers, and then, of course, Richard Rodgers used it often as well. So here we get the second A section. We've already seen this melody. Across a crowded room, and night after night, as strange as it seems, the sound of her laughter will sing in your dreams. Now, this is really interesting because on the micro scale, when we talk about isolating single lines of music in this song, a lot of those lines of music will repeat exactly but change only the very last note, right? Remember how da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, those 2 phrases are exactly the same except the last note. Same with the da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? On the macro scale, though, when we zoom out, we see that almost the exact same thing is happening. This second A section is identical to the first A section, except for the very last note, right? The first A section goes, that somewhere you'll see her again and again. It goes to this E. The last note of the second A section is different. The sound of her laughter will sing in your dreams. It goes down to the C. So again, keeping it repetitive so that it sticks in the ear, but changing the very last note just so that there's a little bit of a question and answer. It goes up at first, ba-da-bum-ba, again and again, and then it goes down at the end, sing in your dreams, and that makes it feel like final. It makes it feel like an answer to the question. Then we go into the next section. We get this like open just G's. These are all just G, G, G in different octaves, which leads us to this lovely section of and then there we go. And what's happening here is just a lot of tension and release, right? The melody here gets a lot simpler. Again, we're providing contrast because we're in the B section. So the melody in the A sections, big sweeping range, you know, we're going ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-ba, we're jumping octaves and stuff. This is just bum ba ba bum bum ba 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 bum. We're just going directly down in steps. But now the harmony does a lot of the talking. So listen to this tension and release. We have this first. If I take this D and I put it up in the right hand, you'll see it's right next to the C. So we have that. And then we have this here where the D and the E are right next to each other and then they spread apart. And 2 notes that are right next to each other on the piano, there's always going to be a little bit of dissonance there, right? And then, so that creates tension, and when we move them apart from each other, it releases that tension. So it's just tension, release, tension, release, tension, release, tension, release. That's all it is, this whole section. Then we get this very cool little interlude, which brings us into the final A section. Let me try to play this. Wait, I've never played this before. Wait. Oh my god, I can't read that. I think that's the right hand part, and then the left hand basically just doubles it. But what's happening here is the important part is this chromatic line at the top, right? There's all of this stuff happening harmonically inside it, but the really important part is this top line. We get this. And then we land on that G, which is the note that the singer comes in on. So this interlude section, basically by chromatics, which means notes that are directly beside each other on the piano, black or white, it doesn't matter. This is a chromatic scale because it's just using every single note on the piano. And it creates very fluid connected motion, obviously, because we're not jumping over any note. And that's what's happening here, and that leads us very satisfyingly back to that G for Some Enchanted Evening at the end. And then here we are, final A section. It feels like an arrival. We're right on that C chord in C major. Some enchanted evening, when you find your true love, when you feel her call you across a crowded room, then fly to her side and make her your own. So far, it's been the same as the previous A sections, right? But now, instead of what used to happen, which is ba-da-ba-da-ba, going down to the low C, now we jump up to the high C and make her your own. And this is also varied. Or all through your life you may dream all alone. And that, because we're jumping up now, it adds an energy and a passion and an emotion to this ending section of the song that drives us home to the finale. Then we have this little outro section, once you have found her, never let her go, which is the same as the B section, but then we have this outro, which I love, which sounds like this. Never let her go! Right? Like, amazing. And what makes this so powerful is here, we're going just down in steps, right? We're not skipping any notes in the C major scale. We're not skipping any of the white notes on the piano. And it's going down. Then the exact opposite thing happens. Instead of moving stepwise, we now move in jumps. We skip notes on the piano, and we move up. Skip E, ver, skip G, let, skip B, her, skip D, go, never let her go. And what that does is it actually spans more than an octave. So the singer has to do this huge range in just 3 bars. And end on this high E, which is the highest note they've sung so far in the song. So it ends on such a big bang. And then this is also a classic technique to make the melody stick in the head long after the song is over. Look at this outro. The full orchestra plays those 5 notes that kept repeating in the melody. So those 5 notes become this very repetitive hook that it's the first thing you hear in the song, Some Enchanted Evening, and it's the last thing you hear in the song from the orchestra. So even if you've only heard the song once, you will go home humming, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And probably you haven't heard the song only once because, when you have these catchy songs in musicals, they love to put it in the bow music and the exit music. And I don't know the bow music and exit music of South Pacific off the top of my head, but I feel like it would not be surprising if Some Enchanted Evening appeared there because it's such a widely beloved song and it's such a catchy one that they want you to leave the theater humming. And before I go, just a word in favor of repetition in music. Richard Rodgers is widely considered to be the greatest melodic writer of all time, and I would totally agree. And there's a certain kind of elitism that I see from certain musical people that kind of poo-poos pop music because of its repetitive nature. And they think that repetition means that it's not being creative. I really, really don't think that's true. I think that the point of music is to communicate it to a listener. I think if the listener doesn't understand the song and doesn't remember the song, then the song failed in its duty. The point of a song is not to prove to somebody how smart you are. The point of a song is to communicate a feeling, an emotion, a thought to other people. And that repetition, that's how our brains are built to learn. It's how our brains are built to understand. And when you have the right amount of repetition in a song, it's not the exact same thing over and over and over. There's a little change every time to keep it fresh and interesting. But the core melody of the song is based around a repetitive musical idea that allows people to internalize the song. And it's a beautiful thing that music can do. It can make us remember these thoughts and feelings on a deeper level than just the spoken word. And so I really believe in, and I'm an advocate for, writing music that is memorable, like the great Richard Rodgers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week here on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! Peace out, y'all.